I'm sure you're all familiar with the count-off that the lead musician of a band calls out in order to get all the players in sync, when he goes a 1, a 2, a 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the music starts. Well, I'll use that pattern of 4 beats in order to help us understand how different time values can be written down as different notes. Here is the arrow of time. The past is on the left, the future is on the right. The simplest way to keep track of music as it plays through time is by drawing a straight line. The start is on the left, the end is on the right. Now, to help us locate ourselves within the music being played, let's divide this line in segments called measures or bars. Each of these segments contains the same number of beats. By far, the most common number of beats per measure is 4, which is referred to as common time. Here's one measure I extracted from our diagram. As I said, there are 4 beats per measure. But how can we write down these 4 beats? The simplest way is to use 4 of these. This is a quarter note, because one of these takes up a quarter of the time allotted for one single measure. And here are 4 of them within a measure. The way a musician would read these is by playing 4 separate sounds of equal duration. 1, 2, 3, 4. But there are different notes of different durations that can be used to fill up the same 4 beats. The basic notes are the following. We have the whole note, one of which fills a measure in common time. 1, 2, 3, 4. The half note, 2 of which fill a measure in common time. 1, 2, 3, 4. The quarter note, seen just a moment ago. 1, 2, 3, 4. The eighth note, 8 of which fill a measure. 1, 2, 3, 4. The 16th note, with 16 notes per measure. And then we have the 32nd note, the 64th note, the 128th note, and so on. However, we can only go so far by writing down how long a sound should last. There's also the lack of sound that should be written down when we need silence in between the notes. That's why for each note, there's an associated silent note, or better called a rest. We have the whole rest, the half rest, the quarter rest, the 8th rest, the 16th rest, the 32nd rest, the 64th rest, and so on. Alright, all this being said, let's see some examples using real music. But beforehand, 2 short but important side notes. First off, any note with a stem can be written with the stem either going upwards or downwards. It all depends on what's prettier to the eye and what's easier to read when things get a little too crowded on the page. And secondly, any note which carries a flag can usually be linked to any other note with a flag right next to it. The link itself is called the beam, and the grouping of the notes in this way creates a more intuitive way to see how these shorter notes are subdivisions of one beat. All this is very quickly explained, but the guiding principle behind written music is always the same. Keep things as clear and organized as possible. Now, let's see some examples. Here's Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. 1, 2, 3, 4. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are. Next example, Somewhere Over the Rainbow. 1, 2, 3, 4. Somewhere over the rainbow, way up high. And yet another example, Hotline Bling. 1, 2, 3, 4. You used to call me on my cell phone late night when you need my love. And one last example, Can't keep my hands to myself. 1, 2, 3, 4. Can't keep my hands to myself, no matter how hard I'm trying to. Whew, that was fun. Now here's a brief overview. In common time, we have 4 beats per measure. The whole note and the whole rest last the whole measure. They therefore take up all 4 of the beats. The half note and the half rest last half a measure. They therefore take up 2 beats each. The quarter note and the quarter rest last a quarter of a measure, so they take up a single beat each. And then we go into notes and rests that are subdivisions of the beat. Notes with 1 flag are first subdivisions of the beat. Notes with 2 flags are the second subdivision of the beat. Notes with 3 flags are the third subdivision of the beat, and so on. Now, let's take a break. That'll give you time to let things sink in until the next video. And on my side, I'll create some more examples and I'll post a link to that video once it's ready. So until then, take care and see you later.